Hello, friend, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jabril Yusuf Faraj, and today we're going to be reading Chapter 1 of Guardians of the Cosmic Clocks, Wings of the Gods. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 1. When you're busy saving the world, not a moment is safe. It was mid-March Tennessee days like this that made Zya miss her father most. What passed for winter in these parts was long gone, but spring had not yet come. Zya Nicole Jenkins stared aimlessly out the window of her first period classroom at George Washington Carver Magnet School. She watched as each misty drop of early morning drizzle hit the glass, slithering down the pane and pooling on the sill below. Things with her mom were more strained than ever, especially since she found out Zya wanted to try out for the track team. "You might get injured," she'd said. "If you hurt your hands, you won't be able to play your instruments." Zya didn't want to think about any of that just yet. It was track and field, for goodness sake. When she was younger, Zya remembered thinking she'd be able to do whatever she wanted when she turned 13. Imagine her disappointment when she actually did and found out it was all baloney. Just wait till she finds out who I really am. Though she apparently had some kind of natural proclivity for math, Zya had little more than a grudging acceptance for the subject. Even so, Mr. Lane was somehow still one of her favorite teachers. Plus, being in pre-algebra with all the 8th graders meant it was her only class with Elijah. Zya and Elijah were like two peas in a pod, had been for years. After their little ordeal last fall, they were closer than ever. She'd grown more distant from, well, almost everybody. Everybody except him. There's nothing quite like an intergalactic adventure to bring two people together. Once you've seen your own planet from outer space, everything changes. And that was only the beginning. Meeting the Lumerians, receiving their magic timepieces, being held prisoner by the Archons, and escaping with the help of their little friend. Elijah was by her side the whole time, even at the end when all seemed lost. They were a formidable match. Whether they were up against a shape-shifting lizard king or poorly mannered mean girls, he was the one she'd been fighting for all along. See, anyone can have an idea of good and evil, justice and injustice, but it's different when they show up in the form of your best friend and a shape-shifting reptilian with a god complex. The first period bell rang out and Eli slipped through the door just as Mr. Lane pulled it shut. It wasn't like him to be late, but she didn't pay it any mind. Her attention was elsewhere. Beyond the window and across the street, Zya watched as a dark outline proceeded down the sidewalk. The figure wore a long trench coat like a 1950s gangster or detective. Not only was it more than a bit out of the ordinary these days for a man to be sporting a mid-century aesthetic, but it occurred to Zya he was moving with a limp. Strange, she thought, his legs as straight as a log. Indeed it was. The figure hobbled, like someone with a club foot or fake leg. What's more, she seemed to be the only one who'd noticed. Eli slid into his seat, breathing heavy. "You would not believe what happened this morning." "What?" Zya said, half listening. "Well," Elijah whispered, pushing his glasses up his nose, "I went to bed last night, just like usual." Between Elijah's story and Mr. Lane starting class, all Zya heard were a jumble of sounds that blended together and seemed a mile away. She couldn't take her eyes off the figure past the window pane. It was then that the dark shadow stepped off the curb, crossing the street toward the school. Despite the lack of cars on the street, the creature's head was on a constant swivel, looking left, right, and back behind them. Zya's stomach turned. The way he moved reminded her of how she felt while trying to sneak something past her parents, and it made her uneasy. Nothing was different except Elijah spoke in that deep whisper he would use when trying to stay out of Mr. Lane's crosshairs. His voice had started to change and wasn't as soft as before. It would even crack from time to time. But that's not what she noticed this morning. He seemed to be avoiding the point. Either that, or he was taking ages to get there. "Hey," he hissed, "you're not listening." He was right. The figure outside had crossed the street successfully and was now waddling over the schoolyard. Zya had deduced it could only be a man based on his shoulders and gait, was pointed straight for their classroom window. It was early in the morning, and Zya wasn't the early morning type, but she could have sworn she saw two yellow eyes peek out from under the brim of a baseball cap. Her mind flashed to their very first meeting with Enki. The Lizard King's eyes had done the very same, and Zya knew then, though she didn't know how, that something was very wrong. In fact, it felt so wrong, she couldn't sit still any longer. Slipping out of her desk, Zya grabbed Elijah by the wrist, pulling him toward the back of the room. It all happened so fast. A glint in the corner of her eye caught Zya's attention, and glancing over her shoulder, she watched as the hooded figure reached in the jacket and pulled out a long black stick. Oh my God. By now, Mr. Lane and the other students were staring open-mouthed, wondering why in God's good earth these two of the best students in class would risk being so disruptive. "Gun!" Zya yelled, pointing out the window. "He's got a gun!" I hope you're enjoying this video. I just wanted to take a little break to tell you about Guardians of the Cosmic Clocks, the Emerald Tablets, and Guardians of the Cosmic Clocks, Wings of the Gods. These are the first two in a 7-book series where the Guardians are going to be traveling across space and time. I'm talking Enlightenment England, Vedic India, Renaissance Italy, and before the end, they will be fighting Nazis and the KKK. If you love mythology, ancient secrets, gods and goddesses, friendship that can't be broken, you are going to love Guardians of the Cosmic Clocks. If you'd like to find the Emerald Tablets or Wings of the Gods, you can do so on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at our official website, guardiansofthecosmicclocks.com. I can't wait for you to get swept away on this award-winning adventure, so go out, get your copy today, and I'll see you on the other side. Now, back to our video. 27 heads turned in unison, and it only took a moment to confirm what they'd just been told. "Down!" Mr. Lane yelled. "Everybody get down!" The students threw themselves to the floor as their teacher rushed to close the blinds. Zya and Elijah swung around the back corner and raced down the aisle for the door. Only 5 rows of desks lay between them and the exit. But the gunman wasn't 50 feet away, and his weapon was already raised. He stared down the sight, caressing the trigger. Almost there. Zya reached for the doorknob as the first shot rang out. It sounded like thunder from heaven, delivered with the cold chill of a killer's finger. 3 semi-automatic rounds, each the result of a sinister intention, rang out. Bang, bang, bang. Everything seemed to stand still as the bullets whizzed through the air. Mr. Lane was halfway to the window when he too dropped to the ground, and Zya watched as little Rosalie cowered in the corner of the classroom. Most of the others ducked beneath their desks. Simon and Ryan had buckled to the impulse, which can often not be avoided when one is in danger, to reach for the thing you cherish most, and were rooting around anxiously in their desks. Zya and Elijah had just made it to the door when the little metal messengers penetrated that thick schoolhouse glass, leaving 3 holes in the shape of an isosceles triangle. The bullets lodged themselves deep in the wooden doorframe, not more than a foot from their heads. Zya twisted the knob with all her might and flung the door open. An anxiety-riddled assembly line of thoughts streamed through Zya's head as they burst into the hall. Could the Archons really have found us? Here? If only they had their watches. But no, adults always know what's best. If only they'd listened. If only they'd trusted me. But that was all behind them now. They could only go forward, and forward was happening fast. It was times like this Zya liked to remember the words of her grandma Anita. She always had the perfect little nugget at just the right time. But in this moment, her time of greatest need, there was nothing. No kernel of wisdom could account for the terror they faced. All she heard was, "Trust yourself." Through the classroom door, she could hear Mr. Lane's frantic shouting, but Zya couldn't bring herself to look back. Think, Zya, think. With Eli's wrist in her hand, they turned the corner and almost collided with an open door, the door of a janitor's closet. Perfect. She yanked Elijah in and pulled the door shut. They stood there, huffing and puffing in the pitch black. Zya dug her finger down into the little front pocket of her jeans and pulled out a shiny metal object, barely the size of a quarter. It was the communicator Maroon had given them. He told them to use it if they ever needed help, and boy did they ever. "Let's hope this works," she whispered. Zya pressed down and a green light started to blink. It was Elijah's turn to grab her wrist. "You weren't listening." "Well, in case you didn't notice," she shot back, "I was a little distracted." "Zya," he said, "I have a sister." "You're like a brother to me too," she answered. "No, Zya," he said with a deliberate cadence. "I went to sleep an only child and woke up with a little sister." Just as he finished, a wisp of blue fire appeared halfway up the far wall. However, rather than catching a mop on fire or sparking into the bucket of old rags, it swirled round and round, expanding with every rotation till it was the size of a Spartan shield, just big enough for two teenagers to climb through. Zya and Elijah looked at one another, and after a second or two, he raised a curious eyebrow. "Don't worry," he smirked. "This time, you don't have to convince me." I hope you enjoyed that reading of the first chapter of Guardians of the Cosmic Clocks, Wings of the Gods. If you'd like to keep going, you can get the book right now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or guardiansofthecosmicclocks.com. Thanks for coming by. I hope you are enjoying the video. I just wanted to take a little break to tell you about my Patreon community. My Patreon community is where you can support me to the tune of a few dollars a month, and what you get in return are free signed copies straight to your mailbox anytime I publish. That's right, when you subscribe at the bookworm level or above, you're gonna get signed copies of all of my books straight to your mailbox before anybody lays eyes on them. If you really love my work and you want to go above and beyond, you can subscribe as an art lover, and then you're going to get some additional rewards and bonuses. So thank you so much for your support. The arts are more important than ever, and I couldn't do what I'm doing without you. Take a leap, become a guardian today, and help us save all of humanity. Now, back to the video. I would love for you to come on this fantastic adventure with us. So I'll see you on the other side. And don't forget, you can be a hero wherever you are.